everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. No special announcements or anything, so let's jump right in. First up, Joe from GameSack recently released another video focusing on widescreen modes from games available on classic consoles. Consoles that you most likely would not have expected there to be a bunch of widescreen capable games on it. And the first video that I talked about last time was on the PlayStation, but this one focuses on the Sega Saturn, Nintendo 64, and Dreamcast. So I strongly recommend anybody who games on a widescreen display, whether you're one of the lucky few that games on like a widescreen BVM or the majority of people that might be gaming on a flat panel with a decent scaler, I think it's really important to understand which of these games you should be utilizing its widescreen mode, because why not take advantage of more screen real estate on your TV? But as Joe has shown in both of these videos, not all games work right in widescreen mode, and some just you shouldn't even bother with at all. However, a few others work pretty much perfectly in widescreen mode and would be a really great combination with a modern scaler and a nice high quality widescreen TV. So I strongly recommend checking this out, even if you're remotely interested in this stuff, because I find stuff like this fascinating, because I would have not guessed that there would have been games from the Sega Saturn and N64 era that truly supported an actual widescreen format. So check out the videos for all the details. They're both linked here, and I don't know, this was another really cool one. James from RetroHQ recently released a firmware update to the Jaguar game drive that added compatibility for a couple of Jaguar CD games, VidGrid and World Tour Racing, and it also fixed some instability errors with developers using PC uploads to test their ROMs. So if you have a Jaguar game drive and you wanted to play a couple more Jag CD games, absolutely update the firmware. I think that older versions of it, you'd have to upgrade slightly different, but all of the instructions are right there in the post. So this is definitely something that, I think most people who own a game drive would probably want to use it to test out Jag CD games that they're probably not going to have a chance to play on original hardware any other way, because those Jaguar CD units are known to have failed pretty much immediately. So also, if you want to see the Jag game drive in action, you can check out a video I did with James a while back, and I showed all of the different accessories, modern accessories for the Jaguar, as well as showed the game drive in action and tested a bunch of games. And whenever I recommend these live streams, don't let the length intimidate you. I'm not recommending that you sit through an entire live stream if you just want to see this thing in action, but there should be timestamps, so you could just skip ahead, check out the game drive, and that's that. Also, if you want to hear more from James, you could check out an interview we did on YouTube, or just search any podcast app for RetroRGB, RetroHQ. Some more good news for Jaguar fans. Ricky Double W just released a new version of the Big PMU emulator, and this one includes the Linux and ARM64 Windows versions that were previously only for beta testers, Patreon subscribers, which once again, I do really love that model. That way you don't have to send betas out to the whole world. You just have your trusted group that understands that you're testing beta stuff. But now absolutely everybody could just download it and try it, whether it's Linux, Windows, or ARM Windows. And there were a few more changes made since the last time I talked about it. So I would definitely check this out if you're even remotely interested in Jaguar software emulation. I'm going to get around to doing a live stream with Rich at some point, just so we could kind of dig into some of the other features. I want to get like a good 1080p render going for a couple of games and try that network support that he added. So one of these days we'll make time to do it. There's a time difference between us, but we'll figure it out, because I'm a fan of the Jag, and I think this is just an incredible emulator. So if you appreciate this stuff as much as I do, and you're in a position to support, definitely consider supporting Rich on Patreon. Also, usually the public releases come much closer after the private beta tester Patreon only releases, but Rich has still been battling cancer. He's been updating everybody on Patreon. It's really, really crappy. I don't like to see that. I hope he gets better. So if you want to see more of this stuff and you have a little bit of patience, then definitely consider signing up on Patreon, because I can't wait to see what he comes out with next. The RetroTINK 4K is coming back in stock this Saturday, May 18th at 4 p.m. New York City time. There should be a lot more in this batch than the last two, so it should stay in stock for at least a couple of days. I hope. I kind of hope both sides, right? I'm always excited for Mike when these things sell out basically immediately, but I also want there to be enough for everybody to go around. So hopefully there'll be stock for at least a few days, but this is a much larger batch, so who knows? Maybe there'll be normal stock of the RetroTINK 4K after this. But either way, if you were waiting on this scaler, now is the time to jump on it, just in case. I don't think you'd have to jump on immediately at 4 p.m. New York City time, but I would definitely do it this Saturday evening just to make sure that it doesn't sell out. And if the website starts to crash like it did 2 times ago and sort of did last time, once again, there's a lot more of them, so I wouldn't worry too much. But if you've been waiting patiently for one of these and really want one, I would definitely, at the very least, try Saturday night or some point this weekend, Sunday morning, or whatever else. Also, to celebrate, I have finally finished the RetroTINK VHS video, which is going to be released about an hour beforehand because it's a 40-minute long video. So that'll just give you a chance if you want to hype yourself up and check that out. This was a massive deep dive, and this is both a very good tutorial about how to use the tinks to back up any kind of analog media, and at the same time, it's also practice for that huge VHS video I have coming up, which is once again actually going to be all magnetic tape media basically. But yeah, this was a big one. And I also think it gives you a good sense of the differences between cheap solutions, total crap solutions, and pro level solutions. And it does sit somewhere closer to the pro level, definitely way better than the cheap solutions. So we'll see. Hopefully you all like it, but I'm here to hype both of these things up because I'm very excited. I hope all of my friends that weren't able to get a TINK 4K the last 2 times are able to finally get one now. And I'm also excited to share these videos or that other video with you, because even if you have a TINK 5X, it's still a really powerful way to digitize tapes. So all of that's coming this Saturday. Hopefully you all enjoy it. And once again, this Saturday, May 18th at 4 p.m. New York City time. The price is still the same, $750 it has always been. So check it out then if you're interested. A physical copy of a brand new Game Gear game was just released called The Sword of Stone. It's essentially a visual novel that allows you to roam around a world as several different characters throughout 7 chapters. If you want to try it out, a demo of just the first chapter is available. You could just download the ROM and play it via whatever method that you like. But if you'd like a complete physical copy, the 2 Mind store is now back open and carrying it complete in box. And just to note, the 2 Mind store is the one known for selling cartridges for the Master System, Mark III, and Game Gear, and I bought Voyage: A Sorceress Vacation from them and tried that out on stream with Stika a while back, and I believe I've tried at least a few of those other games up there, and they're quality releases. The edge was beveled and chamfered like it should be, and I believe you could expect that from all of them. It really looks like the people behind the 2 Mind store really take the time to get the quality out there with a good design. Renee from DB Electronics even commented that he liked the design as well, which, if you know Renee, he's very picky, so that's a pretty big compliment. But if you're interested in this, check it out. But if not, I'd strongly recommend just going to the 2 Minds website and seeing what other games they have available in stock now, which I think they should mostly all be back in stock, because there's a lot of really cool complete in box releases for all of those consoles I mentioned. Marco Retro just posted an awesome video showcasing RenderManiac 3rd's Analogue Geyser. It's a homebrew DAC for the Analogue Pocket that only works with open FPGA cores, but works absolutely perfectly. So this video gives you absolutely everything you need to know. It's another awesome video from Marco where he does voltage testing just to show that the output's pretty much the same as a Mister, and that if you're going from the D sub to SCART, you should probably use an HD15 to SCART, or just put a resistor in the SCART head. Also, it does have a snack adapter, so you could use a 0 latency controller adapter, but you're going to have to use the Pocket in order to navigate the menus and launch the game, which, if you're the type of person that launches your game and then goes and sits down and plays for a while, then that's not a big deal. If you're the type to constantly be messing with settings or changing games, that might be kind of a pain, and that's where it might fall short of the official dock, which is still not supported, by the way. Also, Marco lag tested it, and it seems like it has about 1 frame less latency than the built-in screen on the Pocket, which makes sense because I think you would have to have some kind of buffer to that. I would really love to see somebody go back and do a full latency test on that. Maybe one of these days Tito could do a lag test video on all of the different well, not all of them because there's a bunch, but a lot of the more popular Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color and even the Analog Pocket screen mods versus the original to see how much latency is actually there. I don't think a lot of people like those compared to the other style videos, so that would be it'd be a lot of time for Tito to spend on a probably not well performing video, but who knows? Maybe we'll see if that happens in the future. But either way, I would strongly recommend checking out this video if you have a Pocket and you're even remotely considering outputting from the Pocket to either a CRT or to a scaler to then have it displayed on a big flat panel TV. It really goes over absolutely everything you need to know, including support for composite in S-Video out that will soon be available using the same methods that Mike Simone did. So I don't know. This was absolutely awesome. Shout out to Marco. Marco is now officially a contributor to RetroRGB. Hopefully the downscaling section will be added soon, which is on me. Marco has done a ton of work on that. I just need to get around to setting it all up. Also, I would like to apologize to Render Maniac Third because I was referring to him as the short name Randmark 3 or something, so I got that wrong. And then Marco called him Random Kill, which it actually looks like that. It's like early 2000s leet speak. It would be Random Kill, but we were both wrong. It stands for Render Maniac Third. So my apologies. I'll try to remember to get that right in the future. So definitely check the video out if you have a Pocket and you're looking for video output and snack zero latency controller support. Pre-orders are now open for a vinyl version of the Virtua Fighter 2 soundtrack. I believe last year around the same time, the Virtua Fighter 1 soundtrack was released, and now they're following up with the sequel. It's both the arcade and Sega Saturn versions of the soundtrack that are included in this, and it's priced at about $45 with release being August of this year, so just a few months. There's a couple of different versions available, and I believe one might be a lot more limited than the rest. So if you're into vinyl soundtracks and you're a fan of Virtua Fighter, definitely read through Crystal's post, get all the details, and then you have a couple of different ways to purchase it depending on what you're looking for. So another awesome vinyl soundtrack for a cool game. Check out the post if you're interested. Now it's time for this week's Mr. Updates, care of Lou from Lou's Retro Source. As usual, I'm just going to skim through and give my thoughts where I feel like it, but please check out Lou's video for all of the visual examples and more details. Starting us out, there's a new INI option for Mr. that allows you to use a different Mr. main binary, and you could even use this on a per core basis. So basically, if you want to just use the regular Mr. main, but you're also testing a beta core, you could add all of this to the INI file. Lou shows this in detail in the video, so if you want to know how to do that, just go back and definitely check out Lou's video. Next up, Taki Udon gave us an update on the DE10 Nano clone, and a bunch of features have been verified to work, like direct video, the 2048 by 1536 output resolution, VGA, SNAC, and 3.5mm audio of the analog I/O board, and a USB hub. They still need to test the real-time clock and the digital I/O board with dual RAM setup, which that's what I'm also really interested in, is that new 24-bit compatible DAC that Sorg came up with a while back. So that's it for now, but we'll definitely keep everybody updated on this because this is really exciting. This is essentially a way of getting a cheaper Mister that works exactly the same. So maybe Taki Udon would allow me to buy one in advance just to give it a try, put it on all my equipment here and just kind of check it out myself. But that's pretty exciting that we could be able to do the exact same thing for cheaper. Next up, Aerial Aces posted some images of a new NFC card templates based on the Sega Genesis Red boxes and the 0 MHz DOS collection. And Wizzo also created a new website for the Tap2 project meant to be a one-stop shop for guides, photos of builds, and more. And Bedroom Ninja also has NFC engine cases available for purchase. So that allows you to insert the NFC card as if you were launching a PC Engine console game, which is pretty neat if you're a fan of that. So I say it every time, I'm a massive fan of the project. I thought it was neat until I tried it myself, and I just thought it was incredible. Just tactile launch your game support. So I just think that's very cool. Next up, a new arcade game has been released by the Coin-Op Collection, Teki Paki, which is a falling block puzzle game reminiscent of Tetris, Puyo Puyo, Columns, that style of game. So you could obtain the core from the public Patreon post by a Track 17 if you want it. Also, some other beta cores. If you're willing to do some compiling of your own, you could test out the work-in-progress M107 arcade core by Martin, aka Wickerwaka. And this hardware only ran 3 games, a very cool-looking vertical shooter called Air Assault, and 2 soccer games. Next up, Hotego applied some maintenance fixes to some Konami games, Outrun, Karate Champ, and the Toki core. And also, Hotego said that several System 18 games are booting in the upcoming core. However, there's an issue with the VDP chip implementation that's still being worked on. And without that VDP chip, some games will display graphical glitches and stuff like that. So, as always, thanks to Lou for doing this. There's no chance I could keep up with all of it. So please definitely subscribe on YouTube and consider subscribing on Patreon as well if you rely on these updates as much as I do. Tito from Macho Nacho Productions recently posted a video showing off Loopy's new USB-C mod for the 3DS. And this allows you to output both screens to a PC like previous mods and also charge the 3DS at the same time through the same USB cable, which is awesome. That's just one tethered connection that you would need then. The price is $120 for the kit or $200 if you send your console to Loopy to have the kit installed for you. Tito's video was awesome as always, but one of the things that really stood out was that the installation itself is pretty complicated, but the modifications to the shell are really, really tedious. And I think that's where a lot of the time comes in. And unless you've done a whole bunch of these, it would probably take quite a bit of time and patience in order to get right. So while this mod looks very cool and seems to be a really awesome thing for streamers who want to use original hardware, I think if any of the awesome case makers out there would consider making a shell for this so you don't have to modify anything, you just take the guts out of your original 3DS shell, put it in this one with the mod, I think that would really greatly simplify this installation. So if anybody out there is willing to do that, I'm not really sure how many of these things are going to be sold, but I'm pretty sure a lot more would be sold if you didn't have to completely hack up and be very careful in order to get this to fit into an existing case. So I don't think you're going to make $1 million on that one, but it might be worth your time. I guess we'll see. But definitely check out Tito's video. Awesome as always. It really gives you a good insight into how this thing works, what to expect for the installation and to the output. And also, just on a personal note, I would still love to see some kind of mod to play this in 3D somehow. I know I'm one of the few people left on the planet that still likes 3D TVs and still thinks there's a good chunk of content, not all of it, but a good chunk of content that was definitely better in 3D. And I think a bunch of the 3DS games truly benefited from it. So maybe this has to be done via VR. So if you're looking forward, you get the true 3D from a top screen, but then if you move your head down, you could see the bottom screen or something like that. I don't know, but I would love to see a solution to either emulate it. Real hardware is always best, but even emulation, just to be able to get that 3D effect and really experience these games maybe even better than they were originally put out, because depending on how you held to that screen, sometimes the 3D effect was perfect and sometimes not so much. But that's just me ranting. Awesome video, very cool mod. Definitely check it out if you're interested. Video Games New York is opening pre-orders on an official re-release of a homebrew Dreamcast game called Sturmwind. The game should be available to purchase by the time you hear this. I think this podcast is going live just a few hours before this game is, but I wanted to include it in this podcast and not next week, just to give everybody enough time to make sure to pre-order it if they wanted one. But this is available as a standard edition for $40 or a deluxe edition for $60 that includes a custom VMU shell as well as a new D-pad upgrade. And I think that's really cool because this takes advantage of the Video Games New York molds for the VMUs that they're making. So that way you'd be able to have a really nice, good quality one that's branded the same as the game. And I'm also interested to see how the D-pad upgrade goes, because a ton of my friends have always complained about the D-pad on the Dreamcast. I always kind of tolerated it, but it certainly was never the best. I almost always used the analog stick when I could, even for games that you could probably use both. I still just stuck to that one. So that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to change the performance of the game. But if you want more info on it, definitely check out the Video Games New York site. I have everything linked here. And, you know, yes, this game is available to get elsewhere right now, but this is an official release on an actual pressed disc, not a CDR. And it's the mil-spec format. So very, very quick overview of this. I'm going to skip through it. So I'm just going to make this a general overview, the Dreamcast could read two types of games, official Dreamcast games and then mil CD format. And when we burn these CDRs, we burn them in that mil CD format in order for it to be read on Dreamcast consoles. One version of the Dreamcast doesn't support these, but the rest do, so this should work. So this is kind of halfway between. This isn't a full official Dreamcast release with the DRM built in and all of that, but it is not a CDR. So it shouldn't wear down your laser any more or less than an official Dreamcast game would be. It just wouldn't work on any console that doesn't play mil CD games. Hopefully that all made sense. This is, for the most part, not a big deal because most people just don't have to run into that issue. But basically, while this is not a CDR, if your Dreamcast won't play CDRs, it probably won't use this either because it's also mil CD spec. But it's not a CDR. Sad that we have to make that clear these days, but it is what it is. I saved this one for last because it's probably going to be another long one, and I'm going to try to treat this the same way I treated the section last week, where I just lay out the information and allow you to make your own decisions on how you feel about this. But after 3 years, the PSIO has finally received an update. In order to get this update, you have to provide all of your purchase information, serial number, account number, and if you don't have that, you have to then try to contact the original owners or have them try to contact the original owners, or after all of that, pay a fee in order to get this. It does add some support for games that didn't work previously. It has Game ID support that's sort of working, and it's got a couple of other updates. So really, I guess that's just kind of all you need to know about this. So if you don't own a PSIO or don't really care, you could just, kind of drop off right now. If you do own a PSIO, you're probably going to want to stick with me because this one gets a little weird. So all of these delays seem to have been around the DRM and trying to make sure that the product doesn't get cloned and just sold outright, which I respect that, absolutely. However, there's a few things about this that absolutely don't sit right with me, but I don't know if I'm looking at this the right way. Maybe I'm missing something. But first and foremost, people who have already purchased this are now being told they have to jump through hoops in order to get a software update that's supposed to be free, but then you might have to pay for it, but then you might not, but you bought it legally, you didn't scalp it, it's not a clone. So that kind of seems like a lot to put your customers through. I had a lot to say about the RetroGem from PixelFX and how they have software paywalled features on there, but they told you from day one, before it was even up for sale, that was going to be the case. So whether you agree or disagree, they're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. Whereas this is like, what if you bought this a couple of years ago, you're told the update's free, but now it's not somehow. Also, I had a few people go through the process and try to figure out how to get it assigned over to them, including a friend who bought it from a friend of mine. So I was able to see the entire interaction, and it was a legally purchased PSIO directly. It was not a clone or anything like that. And then the original purchaser sold it to one of my friends, who then sold it to another friend. So when they tried to get the update, Matt from Sibdyne had to contact the original purchaser. So how would you feel if you bought something legally and then you sold it not only legally, but morally okay? You didn't scalp it. You didn't jack the price up. You're just like, hey, I'm done with this. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to sell my PSIO modded console to somebody. And you sold it at a fair price and you did everything right. And they sold it to somebody else at a fair price and did everything right. And you're getting contacted asking for your login information, your serial number. I don't know where that sits with privacy laws around the world, and I don't even know if it's something that, even if it is illegal in some places, I don't know if that would actually be worth going to court over, but that definitely doesn't sit right with me. Maybe some of you might be looking at it as like, hey, it's just a quick inconvenience. We all get emails. You could just ignore it, but I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about that. Also, the $10 update, if that's going to be applied, shouldn't it just be applied? Shouldn't it just say, hey, I promise a new update every 6 months, even if it's just quick bug fixes, but from now on you pay $10 and that way if you bought a clone or something, you know that you can't get the newer software. I don't know. I don't understand where where that comes in or how that would make any sense whatsoever, especially because all of the work that goes into it on their side of things, trying to figure out who owns what. I mean, isn't that costing them more time, essentially money, than anything else? And if you own a PSIO and it plays all your games and you don't need any of these other features, I definitely wouldn't even bother. And that's my opinion. I'm not telling you what to do. I don't like to have to do work to use something that I already bought that should just need a file dropped on an SD card. But if you need some of the features that they advertise, and I would definitely go through and double check Alex's post. I would read through everything and check out Alex's point of view on this as well, and also reference the main release to see what features are added and what things have been fixed. And remember that the Memcard Pro Game ID support is spotty; it's not perfect, but I would see if it's worth it to you, because this is a lot. I mean, I just don't understand any of this. I think I've just decided that I'll never understand what's going through Matt's mind, because I would have never done any of the things that he's done the way that he's done them. It's kind of mind blowing. But I'm certainly glad that I don't own one of these. And I really wish that somebody would release a Homebrew menu system for this, so we just don't have to worry about it anymore. One person already completed it but didn't release it because he was threatened with legal ramifications, implications of doxing, because Matt had doxed people before. So I completely understand why somebody with a family wouldn't want to release that and have to deal with that repercussions for essentially no personal gain whatsoever. So hopefully somebody that's not afraid of stuff like that would be able to step up and just release a menu for us to use, because this is not, I guess this is a little bit more leaning towards my opinions, but this isn't a case where a product was released, cloned, and the original manufacturer is losing a ton of money. This is their mistake after their mistake after their mistake. And we, the customers, continue to get punished for all of this. So, and it's been like that since the initial release of the PSIO. Some of the people who backed it originally never got updates at all and were just blown off. So I know I mention that every time, so you're probably sick of me hearing it, or sick of me saying it, but I just needed to add that for perspective. This isn't just a desperate dev saying, oh, my stuff's getting cloned. From day one, we've been treated pretty badly. So have your own opinions formed about it. Maybe you think I'm overreacting and this is just totally fine, $10 upgrade, or just send a couple emails. But if you don't think that it's okay, you might want to put your voice out there and let people know. And that was kind of the thing last week, that I'm not picking either side of this, but I understand and appreciate that when people were mad at limited run games, they said, here's why, here's how. I respected the ones that did it a little more professionally than the others, and it made a difference. To me, this feels way worse, but I haven't heard nearly as many people being vocal about it. So maybe it's just very simply because this is a much smaller market share than limited run games stuff out there. But I don't understand why last week there was so much craziness about CDRs, but this week there's not really that much uproar for this. But maybe that's because I'm wrong. Maybe because this isn't a big deal and you guys don't really care about it, which is totally fine. I just wanted to try my best to lay the facts out there, kind of weave my opinions in as calmly as possible. But I definitely recommend reading Alex's post and kind of just going through this and deciding for yourself where to go. But for me personally, I'm glad I don't own the PSIO anymore, and I would never recommend it for purchase anymore, because there's just, as Matt from Sibden Systems has proved time and time again, there's always going to be something like this. It's never just going to be a normal product. You're always going to have to deal with this stuff. So it's up to you. Well, it stinks that 2 weeks in a row we had to end on a negative note, but hopefully everything in the next week will be pretty positive. There was a few other things that we wanted to write about that are not time sensitive, but that are very awesome. So between that stuff and the RetroTINK 4K release, hopefully next week's roundup will just be 100% positive and happy. But anyway, as always, thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in any way, because it is you who's keeping all this stuff going. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. This week's roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.